You know, a lot of drummers learn songs and we all play songs and it's great, but a lot of drummers kind of get stuck at that point when it's time to do those little tiny intricate points that allow your drumming and your sound to just go to the next level. That's what I think not enough drummers talk about. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? How to make it sound just right. Simple things, the little tiny polish, you know what I'm saying? Because you learn the song and then you go back and you get those little intricate points and you're like, I hope it takes me somewhere, and then you find out it took me somewhere.
No kidding.
And once you do that, you start to incorporate it into every single thing you do because it's necessary, right?
Dude, well done.
So good to be here, man.
Dude, thank you so much for coming.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
That snare just cuts through.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
It's amazing. I love the crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rasheed Williams. Yes.
So good to be here at Drumeo.
Here at Drumeo at last. That track you just played, before we get into it, that's your own track. You wrote that track.
I wrote it, composed it. I played every instrument on it.
You're kidding.
Yes, that was all me.
What's the song called?
It's called Yoshi 11, but it's kind of like a prayer for me.
Right.
Yeah, it's a moment to center.
I love it.
Yeah.
And all the tracks you're going to play on this lesson, they're all your tracks as well?
Yeah, with a few friendly helping points from some guys who actually are guitar players and keys players, you know what I mean? But yeah, everything is, for the most part, all my brain.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. If you don't know who Rasheed Williams is yet, you're about to find out. Killer drummer, known for playing with John Legend.
Yes,
which is great. And Chromeo.
Yeah.
So many others. You're just telling me before this lesson how busy you are, which is a good thing.
It's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Great problem to have.
Very cool. You can follow him if you want to see his schedule. Maybe you can catch him on the road at J. Rasheed Williams.
Yep.
And that's through Instagram, that's through Twitter, Facebook as well. That's just Rasheed Williams on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah.
But make sure you follow him and see what he's up to, because you post quite often on Instagram.
I try to post on Instagram at least once every 2 days.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great sounding and looking kit here as well. Huge thanks to Mapex, Dave Lawrence, and the whole team there for helping put this together. He's awesome, that guy.
Yeah, he's the greatest guy ever.
Yeah. Zildjian cymbals on top and Evans heads and everything like that. So huge thanks to all those who helped out to make this happen. You were just at Victoria Drum Fest. You did some clinics around here.
Yeah.
And you made it on Drumeo. So what are we talking about today, bud?
Man, we're talking about just fine-tuning and polishing up your playing.
And why is that so important?
You know, a lot of drummers learn songs and we all play songs and it's great, but a lot of drummers kind of get stuck at that point when it's time to do those little tiny intricate points that allow your drumming and your sound to just go to the next level.
Right.
So that's what I think not enough drummers talk about. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? How to make it sound just right.
And I think you're the perfect guy for it too, because everything you play just sounds so smooth.
No, I appreciate it, man. You know, it's a few things that I've learned to pay attention to more than others. And those things are things that kind of just make the playing cleaner, makes it more crisp. You hear a lot more of the nuances that I'm trying to throw in.
Yeah.
And you know, I just like clean things, man. Yeah.
Very cool. Let's get into the lesson, but before we do, let's play another track. This one's called Rock Out.
Yeah, Rock Out is, I've had probably the most help of any of the songs I've done on this particular track. And man, it's one of my favorites, man. There's a cool shuffle at the end that's like, it's a great conversation, you know, between different parts of the drums and some great techniques and skills being used.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this song, too, is a lot of the points, you're going to talk about 4 main points here, and a lot of these points are going to be taken or related to the song we're about to play.
Most definitely, because this is a song that I had to polish.
Yeah.
I had to kind of dig into some parts and say, okay, if I want this to go to the next level, like it can sound good.
Yeah.
But if I want it to go to the next level, here's a few things that I need to kind of pay attention to so that it just sounds way cleaner. It has a little more special little touch on it, you know, that seasoning.
Yeah.
Or as they say, the sauce.
Yeah, the sauce.
The sauce.
It's always that 10% that makes the biggest difference, too,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So this is one that I've really had to focus on that 10%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's play.
That's not fair, buddy.
Nah, man. Look, it's so much simpler than it sounds.
Yeah, that's dude, I have seen a lot of drummers play drums. I've sat in this chair a lot of times. I'm always impressed, but you can't tell me it's as easy as it's not as hard as it sounds. Sorry.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you, it's much easier than it sounds.
Okay, all right. Well,
So,
how do you do it then?
Let's dig in.
Okay.
Okay, so the idea with this track was I wanted to be clean.
Yeah.
And when I first played it, I was like, cool, that's what's up, but it can be better.
Yeah.
So I dug into polishing up and fine-tuning the smallest parts.
Okay.
The first problem I ran into was my left hand.
Right.
So, of course, the first solution was strengthen your left hand.
Yeah.
It was, okay, if your left hand can do more and you're trying to figure out that backbeat feel, strengthen your left hand. And it's funny, man, because I never really paid enough attention to the technique I was doing until I figured out that if you really want to sound clean, you have to have a strong left hand.
Yeah.
That backbeat on those ghost notes are so important and they add so much. I mean, the verses of this could be as simple as, but it sounds so much better when you go, or when you do the turnaround. Like, that's all left hand control and strength.
Right.
So it all came down to the technique I was doing. For me, the finger technique is the best.
Yeah.
Using my fingers to control the stick from the inside. So when I do those, it's such a cleaner sound versus just letting the rebound without using my fingers. I mean, it kind of sounds the same versus, but it sounds confident when I use my fingers.
That's a good word for it, yeah.
And that confidence is everything.
Right.
That confidence is the difference between polished and not.
Right.
So, I mean, that was step one. Step one was get this. And even on the, it's just an open and a close. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is, but it's all in the left hand.
I find a lot of drummers, they ignore that articulation with those ghost notes sometimes, especially a drag like that.
Yeah.
Like that sounded so crisp, you could hear the both notes, whereas, I mean, I've done it too, where I've just thrown my stick down and hoped for that the buzz will trick the audience into thinking that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, man, but I mean, the goal to me, I think the goal is to make sure that you know exactly, it's intentional, like you know exactly what you intend to do.
Right.
So when people listen, they're like, ooh, that was nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like putting a focal point on your exact placement.
So it's almost like don't play to the speed of your right hand, play to the speed of your left.
Yeah, no. Your left hand has to become a mind of its own.
Yeah.
That you can still do the stuff with your right hand and they can still work together. But when it's time for your left hand to shine, it has to be tuned up, has to be ready, has to be clean.
So how did you tune up your left hand?
It was the practice technique. Yeah. It was whether, I mean, of course, we do the rudiments, right? Now, when I do these now, I only use the left hand technique with my left hand.
Okay.
So my right hand, I'm not using fingers as much. So I'm sure there's a camera here.
Yeah, we got that.
I'm sure there's a camera to catch that. Like, my hand always opens up. It's almost like I can't not open my fingers up. When I land on the drum and when I pull it back up, it's all fingers.
So it's a different technique than your right hand. Why is that? Why do you do that?
I think it just came down to because when I focused on my left hand, it was like, this is what makes this sound more clean. And sometimes those ghost notes aren't as hard played.
Yeah.
So when I'm playing certain things with my right hand, I want that to be stronger.
Yeah.
So I'm using more wrists, action versus just still keeping that backbeat going with my fingertips. Kind of keeps that light in between the heavy notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was step one. It was figuring that out.
Okay.
And then at that point, it was just practicing the groove. Like, not necessarily the rudiment anymore.
Yeah.
It was picking a groove. So you could go, you say, okay, I want to throw a nice little drag in there. And that turns into you just becoming, it becomes more natural, more normal, and just become this super clean drummer. And it's all in that like it's all there.
All in that left hand.
Yeah, so practicing those grooves, I always tell drummers, don't be afraid of a groove.
Yeah.
Because a groove can take you a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Which essentially comes to the next point of polishing.
Okay, what's that?
Essentially, it comes down now to the hi-hat.
Okay.
Because now you got this cool left hand going. You got the open and close. You got the fingertips popping. Everything is cool.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so how do I add some more polish to the car, you know?
Yeah.
And it becomes paying attention to your hi-hat dynamics. You know, like, and not just dynamics, but opening and closing. We'll get to the open and close part. But the hi-hat, knowing what hit needs to be where, and even down to knowing when to calm down your right hand on the hi-hat so that those ghost notes and drag shine a little more.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, break that down for us.
Yeah, so use the same exact beat, right? Cool. If you notice when I'm playing, and it's almost natural because the left hand's moving, so it could just be hard. It could be super soft. Or you could just polish it and add the dynamic in there. When you know the drag is gonna be, kind of ease up a little bit, so. And that became a thing. So the simplest way to put it for drummers who are like, okay, dude, like let's get out of the brain stuff, let's make it super. It's like as simple as using the barrel of a stick versus the tip of a stick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's like the easiest way to put it. Like
explain like I'm 5, right?
Exactly. So if you know. And it doesn't have to be any particular, like it doesn't have to be, oh, for 4 beats, I'm gonna play it up there. Yeah. It's just literally, like it just adds this most subtle little feel thing in there.
I bet you 90% of the people watching this didn't even know you were doing that in the groove. It just felt so good.
Rewind it. I bet you I'm doing it.
Yeah, you gotta watch it.
I bet you I'm doing it. Yeah.
Well, you know, and those are the things that you don't see per se, but and you don't really sometimes hear. You just feel it.
Yeah.
And you know, you go to a lot of these drummers like, man, that drummer just felt really good, and then that drummer felt stiff. You know, you don't really know why they're playing the same parts, but it's those little intricacies that last a little 10%.
Yeah. And that's the thing I've learned too. Like when you hear a drummer, you say, he was great, but it was something about him.
Yeah.
It either felt really good or it felt, something wasn't right. Sometimes it's the simplest little things.
I love it.
Like, you know, just easing up the dynamics on the hi-hat. You know what I'm saying? And then take it a step further to the opening and closing. Because that's the thing too. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's easy to just the baseline of it. Of course, during the verses, my hi-hat is closed, and on the choruses, my hi-hat is wide open for that slushy, you know, digging in. But when I do this snare turnaround, which is it's one of my favorite things to do on drums. That is like one of my favorite things to do, right? Yeah. So it's like just the same concept. How do I polish that up and make it just a little bit better, right? What about if I opened the hi-hat during the turnaround?
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And you talk about placement, that's what brings the snare back in.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Almost like a restart. That lets you know we're going back to the original groove.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that drums, and as a drummer, it's our job to make sure that everything is understood to the person who knows nothing.
Brilliant.
So we know we're throwing an open hi-hat in there because that's the start of the beat again.
Yeah.
After this turnaround. The natural person is just gonna say, well, that felt good.
I felt comfortable.
Yeah, and they were able to stay on beat. They were able to dance.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
So there's a thought process behind that. You're doing that purposefully.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. Because you could just go. There was nothing there to make it any different.
Right.
There was nothing there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I believe in the simple things. You know what I'm saying? Just. That makes the world of a difference to say, hey, we're restarting now, but you're still on.
I love it. You know, that tip right there alone could be the difference between you getting a gig on an audition and the other guy getting the gig on the audition, you know?
It's actually been how I've gotten gigs on auditions.
Really?
Yes. Hi-hat dynamics. Me and one of my really good musical director friends, man, we have a joke. He's like, dude, you're the hi-hat guy.
You're the hi-hat
and I'm
guy.
like, what? But
There's got to be a story here. Is there a story?
So John Legend's gig, it's like, the story is that I got that gig based on the top of the song Greenlight, and it's a hi-hat fill. Nobody else that day played that.
You're kidding.
It's the first thing you hear in the song, and nobody else
no one played it.
Because the natural thing is to go, oh, I'm not really worried about that, just go. Whereas for me, that's how the song starts. You know what I'm saying? So.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
That's the biggest, like,
so there's a bunch of drummers auditioning, and you're the only one that caught it.
I'm the only one that played that.
So there you go. So that tip alone got you the John Legend gig.
That tip alone got me the John Legend gig.
The polish.
The simple things, the little tiny polish, you know what I'm saying? Because you learn the song and then you go back and you get those little intricate points and you're like, I hope it takes me somewhere. And then you find out it took me somewhere.
No kidding.
And once you do that, you start to incorporate it into every single thing you do because it's necessary, right?
You realize how important it is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you find out how important it is, just teaching yourself how to listen for those things and pay attention to your body movements when you play those things.
Yeah.
You sound crisp, you sound clean, you sound polished.
Love it, man.
So.
Okay, move on.
On to the next step.
Yeah.
Next step, building the accuracy as I'm moving around my drum kit.
Okay.
Because, you know, being a guy from church, we play a lot. Like, we know how to move through a drum set, you know what I mean? So many skilled drummers. But the difference in a drummer that's a little bit sloppy when he's going around the drums versus a drummer that sounds really precise makes the world of a difference.
Okay.
So I like to use this in the sense of like the setups and all those things, like setting up a section. You know, if I'm playing the verse, like, it wasn't, like, it's a certain way you want to lay into this thing and make sure you're also leading off with the right hands too. Like, that precision is everything. The same way I say, you know, there's a touch with the right, there's a touch with the left. There's certain notes when you're playing your times that you want to be more aggressive than others. So we'll just take that simple roll. Simple is so like, you know, that's a textbook lead in from verse to chorus. Now, there's a few ways that this could go that I've seen drummers do.
Okay.
Same concept. I just overplayed the whole thing.
Right.
And it almost kills the vibe of the song. It starts to become, The accuracy comes in when you can hear the notes.
Yeah.
Like, that's everything, and I'm a firm believer. I always aim for the center of the head.
Yeah.
Always aim for the center of the head. Like, we know the drum is this big.
Yeah.
But playing right here and playing right there, you get the full depth of the sound.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So building that accuracy, even if it's just a simple exercise, because essentially, if you take, and it can go anywhere on the drums.
Yeah, yeah.
So building that accuracy as you're moving about, especially on toms.
Well, I guess that's why when you play, because that, at a slow tempo, it's probably quite easy to hit the center, but when you go faster, that's where you sound so smooth and articulate. Sometimes you're playing 6-note triplets at whatever tempo, but it's super fast, and you're still hearing every note just as clear as the last one.
Yeah.
They're not muddy, you know, and that's...
But it takes that practice is what builds that. So a good friend of mine, Brian Fraser Moore, who's been here.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a great friend of mine, right? And he does this thing when he plays. Sorry, Brian, I gotta do this. He does this thing when he plays, and he like, if he's playing this, I can use the same groove, right? And that's the rhythm he goes into, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which he makes it sound so smooth, but just that also develops. And it's all that center point and building that accuracy as you're playing.
Right.
You get the full depth, the full sound, and it just ties everything together. There's nothing like a good setup between a verse and a chorus, or between a chorus and a verse, or a verse and a bridge, or so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing like it.
I agree.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
So practice your articulation and your accuracy and your placement.
Yes.
Love it.
So once you got that down, there's a rule of thumb that I live by.
Okay.
Less is more.
Right.
Less is more. So I laugh because I'm like, this is the most easy concept to me, but to some drummers, they're like, because we all want to, we want to impress each other as drummers. I think the perspective gets off of drummers and goes to the listener who's not a drummer. You know what I'm saying? Or as we call it, arena chops. Like, when you're in an arena, this place is huge, the sound is everywhere. The person way up at the top has to be able to understand every single note that you're playing. And so far, everything that we've covered helps that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you clean up that left hand, all those notes are clear and crisp. If you work on the dynamics with your hi-hat, you can hear all the ins and outs. You build the accuracy around the drum kit so that when you're playing these rolls, everybody knows what you're doing. And then just realize that not everything is... It's not all that all the time.
Right.
Sometimes just... Sometimes it's the simplest little things that let somebody know something's coming.
That's brilliant. You think about a drummer, when they think about polishing and their grooves up, most of the time they're like, I'm going to add some texture, or I'm going to add a little diddle here, or I'm going to add a fill here. It's adding. But you're talking about removing when you're talking about polishing.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is progression, man. So you'll remove it for the top of the song. And I always say, there's always the rule that on the bridges when you go to the ride. You know what I mean? The R&B playing, it's like the unwritten R&B rule, right?
Yeah.
Bridge means ride.
Yeah.
So it's the same way when you're building your fills and you're going around your drum kit. You want to start off simple. You know what I mean? If I'm playing... First time, it goes from verse to chorus.
Right.
The second time, it could be... Which was a bad thing. I just played all the rhymes. But that's the idea, which people make mistakes, people. Don't be deep. Don't be deep. Good.
But you're just improving point number 3.
Yeah, like that is, you want to build that up. And as you, by the time you get to the end of the song, man, you can pick some really nice, tasteful little... Bam, take that. You know what I mean? And, by the time you mix in all these different things, you just turn out to be like a really shiny car driving down the street. If I look at it, if you say, okay, go wash my car. I got a Tesla. I'm going to go wash it.
All right.
Cool. What happens if you don't clean the tires? Somebody's going to look and be like, wow, the car looks really good, but the tires, why didn't you spray the tire? What's up with that? You know what I mean? It's like the same thing if you focus on your left hand but don't worry about the hi-hat dynamics. Or if you get all this together but then don't make it accurate moving around your drum kit. And then somebody can say, okay, cool, so the car is polished, the tires are great, but they're driving so fast I can't even enjoy looking at the car. I can tell it's clean, but it moves so quick.
Yeah.
I didn't even get a chance to enjoy the essence of a really nice polished car. That's what happens when you start overplaying between the verse and the chorus. It's, so less is more, Pick a point of cruise and just polish it all up so that when you're driving down that street, everybody's just like, wow, that thing is clean. That's the goal.
That's an unbelievable analogy.
That's the goal.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I got to clip that out and post that out on Instagram. That was brilliant. It just made sense to me, and it's so true. And how many drummers do you think don't do these things or don't focus on these things or even realize them?
I mean, the way I can honestly put it is there are a lot of drummers that don't. And usually those things are the separation between the drummers who are working nonstop. And like, I've literally seen people talk about drummers who are like on the road and they say, I don't know how that guy got on the road. Like, how did he do that? It's like, look at his little details. Look at the things that he's doing that nobody else is paying attention to. I'm sure when I got the John Legend gig, somebody said, I don't know how Rashid got that gig. Like, I should have got it. Or maybe they should have called me. When you find out, okay, well, he was the only one that played that hi-hat pattern. It's like, somebody's gonna say, seriously, a hi-hat pattern?
Yeah.
What about the song? It wasn't even about the song at that point.
Well, it's because I guess he knows what kind of artist you are and what the details that you focus on.
Anybody that would pay attention to something so small is gonna carry that through every single song, through every point. And that's the thing, because there's a lot of different styles of music out here, especially today, man. I give it to these guys that are working today.
Yeah.
You know, like the Devin Taylors, those guys, and I look at them and they're playing this trap music with these crazy hi-hats and these crazy hi-hat patterns. And these guys have paid attention to so much detail that like they're playing these things with like just the biggest finesse about them. And then like when you look at them, it makes perfect sense why he's on tour with Bieber, why he's on tour, you know? Because it's like, dude, he's paying attention to the stuff that nobody else is even thinking about.
Right, but they all care about it, they just don't know that they care about it.
Yeah, man, I mean, you're playing, some producers sat in the studio and took time.
Yeah.
That's their livelihood, you know? That is what they send out to the world as a message from them. There's no reason in the world why they don't deserve the respect of picking up the intricate points of the music. And then as a drummer, it's no reason in the world why we should not be allowed to humanize it.
Right.
And to add the little nuances that a body does to make it feel just that much better. Somebody's dancing to it now.
That's another great point.
Dude, it's a thing.
I love it, man.
It's a thing.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Yeah, dude. For all those who might not be, you know, at the point where they need to polish, I mean, that's a question I have for you actually, is beginners.
Yeah.
Is this something a beginner should really focus on? Or are they still keep up with the independence and the rudiments and the stick control? Or where do you start bringing this into your practice?
I would say it's even for beginners, because I think beginners' idea is to be very repetitive and to gain a level of repetition in their playing, right?
Yeah.
So that they practice more and they get more comfortable with the drums itself.
Right.
The more comfortable you are, the better you're gonna sound.
Yeah.
The thing is though, as a beginner, every person, even beginners, get to that point where they say, I got it.
Yeah.
If you're playing this beat, a beginner's gonna get to the point where they say, I got it.
Yeah.
However, if you listen, there's a recording of that beat. If you dig in a little bit, you'll catch those extra hi-hat hits.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So even a beginner, once you get the beat down,
Yeah.
just take a second listen. Just go back and say, okay, let me listen. If you're playing a beat that you haven't heard on a record, just improvisation. If you say, okay, cool, that down. Say, okay, well, how can I polish it? Let's just work on the left hand. How can I throw some cool ghost notes in there? And it doesn't come out perfect every time. But you say, and then you say, okay, cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's a start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me add some hi-hat dynamics now. Do I want to open and close it? Do I want to just get lighter and play with it? Drums is beautiful because it's infinite.
Right.
There is no right or wrong.
Right.
It's whatever you decide should happen.
Yeah.
So if you say, and then once you get to that point, you say, well, I like the placement of the open hi-hat. That sounded cool, but it needed something else. That's where you go to the kick drum.
Yeah.
Just let the kick drum do the work for you.
Right.
So you say this wasn't enough, but might be. So. And all of a sudden, you got this super cool Tesla driving down the road with shiny tires.
Not too fast.
Not too fast. It's a cruising speed. And you're like, man, that's a beautifully clean, polished car.
Absolutely. Well said, man.
That is the idea. So it's beginners, veterans, because veterans still got to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, we talked about like Jonathan Moffett being here. When he plays, it's dope because, he plays those grooves.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he plays those grooves. Brian, which is one of my biggest influences, when Brian sits behind a kit, he plays those grooves, and his dynamics, you can hear every single thing.
Yeah.
He's not playing a Justin Timberlake song with a snare that doesn't match up to the snare in the record.
Right.
He's playing with the same backbeat, the same intensity, but that's because he studied.
Added the polish.
Any beginner could do it. Any veteran could do it.
Yeah.
Polish it up.
Thank you so much, buddy. I know you were saying before you're scared of the cameras, but you
There's
are
so many in here. Oh my goodness.
So well spoken, and the way
man.
you articulated your thoughts was really helpful.
I appreciate that, man. I just want people to and that's the thing. You guys at Drumeo, we talked earlier, and I was like, asking some questions, and it's really dope because you said the whole point was to give drummers an outlet, give them access to all these different techniques and things.
Exactly.
And I mean, to be here legit is like, okay, here's my chance to give my 2 cents in the drumming community to the drummers, because that's who we love, right?
Yep.
Sorry, guitar players and bass players and singers and all young people. We love drummers.
Yeah.
So, here's the opportunity, man. And, people hear these what they think is hard to play. And it's like, nah, man, because if you just focus on the left hand, that little backbeat shuffle thing will become so easy.
Yeah.
Because you'll be like, oh, that's just adding a little polish on the snare.
There it is.
And there it is.
And there it is.
And there it is.
We're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think I got some more music to play.
We got some more music to play. If you guys like what Rashid has to say, there's a lot more in Drumeo. We're doing a couple courses with him, tons of performances. He did a really cool video right before this where I gave him a song that he'd never heard for the first time.
Yeah, don't judge me.
And I told him, I want to film your process of how you would drum to it, how you create your parts, and it turned out amazing. So all that's going to be in Drumeo. Go to drumeo.com/trial if you want to check it out. And I'm going to get out of here. Huge thanks again to Dave Lawrence and Mapex, Zildjian,
yes.
Evans, and absolutely. Hey, buddy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, anytime. The last song you're going to be playing is another one of your tracks.
Yes.
And it is called Speak to Me.
It is.
All right. Bye-bye.
Let's do it.